Hi everyone, Alex Mustard here again with another image review session in May 2025. They're mostly pictures in this one from my recent trip to Tiger Beach in the Bahamas, but actually there's a couple of other sets in here. There's a pile of pictures from Malaysia for a magazine, Need, which are old pictures but processed out. There's a few from Australia, with sea dragons and some kelp pictures from California as well. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I've still got at least another batch from the kind of first pass through the Bahamas to go. So that'll be on the next one. But there are some new Bahamas pictures in this one. But all these are newly processed pictures, and there's 40 or so to run through. So starting off in Australia, there's 3 photos here. As always, you can read the camera details on this side. These are all taken with Nikon D700 on a trip back in 2010, but processed this time. The middle one I have processed before, but the other 2 have never been processed before. So I thought it was I pulled those out to process this week. There are 3 different pictures. There are 3 pictures of weedy sea dragons. That's the slightly less fancier species if you have to categorize them. And these 3 actually show the colour variation with region. So this is one taken in Victoria, so in south east Australia. This is on the east coast of Australia in New South Wales, where they're actually very colourful there. And then this one is in Tasmania, where they're really dark and red and richly coloured. So those are the 3 pictures. There's some old wives in the background of this picture called Looking Fish. From Australia, this is taken at Flinders Pier, off a little way around from Melbourne, in that part of Australia, but out onto the east coast. And this is a nice individual here. Nice detail. Although these are D700 files, so that zoom in and it won't show up because I've zoomed it wrong. Although these are D700 files, I did process these out at super resolution. So although the D700 is a 12 megapixel camera, I think, from memory, this is a 50 megapixel file or something like that. So I have got, if it'll zoom in properly this time. So I have got really nice detail in these shots. It's not loading properly. These are struggling to load before. This is the same. I presume I've processed it out again. Yeah, this one is a slight crop, but it's still at about 48 megapixel. Shot originally with a 12 megapixel camera. There's the detail on it. They're not loading properly for some reason today, so they're not looking sharp when I zoom in. But you get the idea. And then this one from Tasmania in the kelp forest there. The kelp forest in this particular location I don't think exists really anymore, which is sad, and that's really because of the deviation of the currents and there's the more warm water hitting that part of Tasmania now. Probably doesn't affect the sea dragons particularly, but does affect the kelp. And it was a really unique location for getting shots of sea dragons in the kelp. And although we only went there for 1 day and 2 dives, we spent those 2 dives scouring the kelp forest looking for sea dragons to be able to get these shots. And I'm very glad that we did, and I have quite a few of them. This is a male here, and you can see the eggs that he's carrying on his tail at the bottom of the picture here. Right. Now to the Bahamas, and instead of pictures from 2010, pictures from 2025, but an above water picture to begin with. And this is just a photo of a nurse shark swimming in the dock in the port that we were going out of. There were actually really nice big nurse sharks in there. It was great to see them, and I just took this picture with the 28mm lens on my Sony 28mm prime, which I often carry as a backup in case I have a problem with my 28-60, which I'm going to be using behind the FCP WACP. This would give me a non-zooming option, but it's a very good quality lens, and quite often use it for topside. And this is just for the 28mm, showing the lemon shark living here in the dock in the Bahamas. Right now out to Tiger Beach, and this first one is a picture of a tiger coming nice and close. The next picture, of course, it was cropped out of frame, but this frame very, very luckily squeezed into the top of the picture. I don't know how well you can see it on here. I know particularly on YouTube often crops the top off, but if you get the zoom right on YouTube, you'll see that you can see both the top and the top of the nose and the front of the nose just squeezed into the frame as this tiger shark came past. And luckily, this shot was just before that nictitating membrane over the eye there had closed, and you can see it there. And when that closes, obviously, you know it's not such a nice shot. So it's good to have some shots, I would say, in the portfolio with the nictitating membrane closed, because it's nice to be able to show it. But obviously, what you really want is sharks coming really close without closing their eye, so that you get a nice clean and eye shot. Because tiger sharks really do have very beautiful eyes. Right, next shot is a lemon shark cruising over some seagrass. And this was just at the end of the dive, and this lemon shark was going round and round the group, and so I decided to, rather than just shoot it where it was, I swam to the seagrass and waited for the nurse shark to patrol back round again through our area, and got that picture there. A couple of vertical shots. These were shot as verticals, so they're not cropped. And as I've mentioned in the other video on the tigers, it's quite hard with these subjects to get any verticals out of the shoot. And obviously, if you do a magazine feature on that, you need at least, you can't, even if you have the 10 most stunning horizontal shots of sharks, you need more diversity in that in terms of a magazine layout, particularly with a couple of verticals. So it's nice to have a couple of verticals, and these are kind of manufactured verticals. Shot as vertical, I think in both situations they work fine as verticals. They would also look good as horizontals, but I shot this as a vertical. I shot this one as a vertical actually because I was squeezing into a gap between a couple of the other divers. I like how you can really see the ampulla of Lorenzini on this one. Let me just zoom back out a bit. There we go. You can really see the patterns of them on the nose just for that upward view. This is a shark that has this slight deformation on its nose. And yeah, it doesn't seem as sharp, that one. It is sharp. Anyway, I just loaded these onto the computer. For some reason, the computer, you can see it's saying at the bottom of the screen, it's still trying to generate the previews. So when I zoom in, they're not always showing properly for some reason. Then a black grouper here on the reef with a reef shark behind. This is a friendly black grouper that's got the nickname Cookie. He's not the most friendly. He's a bit of a cheeky so-and-so. But he makes for a good photo opportunity if he happens to swim near you. He's not especially cooperative, but every now and again he'll come and hover in an area, and you might be able to get a few shots with him in. This one here, I was shooting him, and this reef shark came in over the top. It's not the most balanced composition, and I think because it was a bit up and down, I cropped this to 4:3. And then still on that same reef dive, a picture of one of the tiger sharks cruising across the top of the reef. This is actually Bella, cruising through the sea fans on the top of the reef. And I like this reef, and then the shark very dramatically coming straight at the camera. This is a picture. I don't like the colour balance on this one. I think it needs a slight tweak. It looks too much tint in it, too much magenta in the picture, so it needs a quick white balance. But this is a picture of Emma, one of the older sharks at Tiger Beach, swimming over the sargassum beds which grow in some of the shallower areas of Tiger Beach. So it's quite a cool environment to get pictures in. Another tiger available light shot. As I mentioned in the other video, I tried to do quite a few available light shots during the trip. I think they give a different perspective of the sharks and place them into their environment. It's not necessarily my favourite one. I don't particularly like the shadow of the boat on the right. And I think the shark is a little bit too sideways on. It's difficult with the tigers because you want them sideways on to show the stripes. But if they're too sideways on, they're not really engaging with the picture. And I think this one here, while I like the shark and I like its shadow, I think the shark just doesn't feel like it's engaging with me enough because it's just very much sideways on. And it doesn't feel like it's interacting with the environment either. I think because it's slightly up off the seabed. So yeah, it doesn't quite work for me, that shot. Here's there's a tiger, then with two reef sharks as a background, and then beyond that, another tiger shark. So I rather like this one. It's zoomed in quite a bit, and I think I cropped this one a little bit as well. Let's just look at the file size. Yeah, so it's cropped to 7,000 from the normal. How big is it? They're normally... No, it's not cropped much, actually. Oh yeah, 8100 is my normal sort of 50 megapixels from my. I'm looking at the top line up here of the size of the file. It's not cropped a bit; it's about a 10% crop. But I like this shot with the tiger shark and the reef sharks, and then the other one behind. It's a nice angle. It's shot with a much more zoomed in lens, and that's compressed all the perspective. But I rather like that look as a variation from the very fisheye pictures. Sorry, I'm sure I'm sending you to sleep. All right. There's a couple of black and white ones now. So this is a rainy day, and the rainy day gave the opportunity to do some panning shots. And some of these I've processed in black and white, and some I've processed in colour. Just a mix, really. This one here, I think this one I shared on Instagram. Nice shot of a reef shark. It's shot with panning and zoom and rotation of the camera. This was a trick that I picked up from Nick Moore, who was on the trip, who's very well known for his blur shots. Because the conditions weren't very dark at Tiger Beach, it's a very bright place, in order to generate as much movement as he could during the exposures, he was both panning and spinning the camera at the same time, because the spin puts a lot of movement in to the picture, and so it enabled to create a lot of streaking during a relatively short exposure. I also like the fact that the spin has created, I think, quite interesting shapes as well in the blur, which I think work particularly well in this particular frame, where there's kind of a sweeping arc through the picture, which works well with the shape of the shark. This is just a straight panning shot of Tiger coming nice and close in. I think this is Tequila, one of the big sharks, one of the bigger, older sharks, coming in on that dark day. Back to another reef shark, and I processed this one in black and white as well. Very similar technique to the other one. This one had a nice little pilot fish in front, so it made me want to process this one out. And this is another shot, and I'll just bring the settings up. So 20th, 15th, a 10th. So, when you're having to do panning shots at a 10th or a 15th, you really do need quite a lot of camera movement to generate that blur. This is one I processed in color. I thought the color of the sharks work well in this one, whereas I think the shapes in this one, I think the streakiness looks better in black and white, but the sharks probably look better in color. So it's nice to process some one way, some the other. I could just obviously process this picture in color and black and white, but I kind of like that singular vision where you go, right, this is a black and white and this one is a color, rather than just processing everything one way and everything the same shot the other way. I mean, I have no shortage of shots from Tiger Beach. A tiger shark panning shot. Again, you can see from the streakiness, there's some camera rotation in this one as well, but it's mainly a panning shot. And then back to slightly brighter conditions, and this is just a tiger coming in nice and close. I think this might be from that same sequence. I had two head-on shots of the same shark, actually, I think. Maybe even the same pass, and this is just where it gets closer, and with the zoom lens you change the zoom and the perspective changes. I do like the very angular head shapes of the tigers, and that's definitely something I try and work into my photos. It's always good to get that into the shots when they're coming head on to you. They look very different head on to side on, and I think it's nice to have both those pictures. This shark's a different. This shark doesn't come in close very much. It's got a bent pectoral fin, which is the fin on the far side of it. You can't see it very clearly in this picture. And it would always often come into when we were baiting, but didn't usually come right into the divers or anything. But it was a very beautiful, very elegant shark. It was quite a long tiger shark, not that chunky, and had these beautiful patterns on it. Rather than stripes, it almost had blotches. So yeah, I was very happy to shoot it that way. This is a huge Cubera snapper that lives on the site. So just show you some of the settings again while I'm spinning through. And yeah, absolutely monstrous Cubera snapper, one of the biggest snappers I've ever seen. And would not be super friendly, but would always be interested in around during our dives. Certainly when we were close to the reefs. In this case here, it ventured out over the seagrass to see us. This 11 shark with a zoom blur on it, so zooming the lens during the exposure, taken on 1/10 of a second, and just zooming the lens to create a little bit of interesting background. I tried this one in black and white because I thought the streaking was just too subtle in color, and in black and white you could see the streaking a little bit better, but it's not a great shot. I think that was just really once I had this nice conversion in Lightroom, I then was copying and pasting it onto other shots to see how they looked, and I felt that one was improved slightly, but it's not an amazing shot. Some reef sharks photographed just under the boat. I think it's a pity I got the boat into the top of this picture. You can see it on the top left. Obviously, I could clone that out, but I don't really, a picture like this, I don't really want to have to label it as manipulated because I've taken the boat out. Maybe that's the level where maybe you just put a comment, a distraction move from edge of frame. But anyway, I left the boat in with this one. But I do like the formation of the sharks with the one close to the camera and the two behind. Not a shark, but a shadow of a shark. You see these a lot in Tiger Beach, and you're always like, oh, they look really cool. And they're actually quite hard to photograph well. Obviously, photograph without flash and just showing the pattern on the seabed of the shark. I think it's an all right idea. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's an idea worth having as a stock image. Not anywhere near as beautiful as shooting what was going on above that shadow, which was a stunning Caribbean reef shark, lovely proportioned shark in the beautiful sunlight of Tiger Beach. Much more crowd pleaser type image. And those are the ones that I've the new Tiger shots and new Tiger Beach shots that I've processed in the last few days. And then moving on to a few other pickup shots. This is a Philippine shot from this year, which is a hairy squat lobster inside this giant barrel sponge inside a ridge of that. I really like the ridge of the barrel sponge. I don't think that the look and the image quality of this is quite where I'd like it to be, but I really like this ridge creating this canyon going away from the camera, and I like the position of the squat lobster. And these guys were moving around the thing. I only got a couple of chances while it was in this position. I was there on my own. There wasn't a guide, and I don't move them around. I wait for them to move into nice places. And this was a pretty nice place. I don't think I got my lighting completely right. It's a bit dark at the bottom of the frame, a bit light at the top of the frame. But he was moving, and I didn't get a lot of opportunity. And I still like the shot very much, but I think it could be a little bit better. Shot with the EMWL. Which I say obviously, but it's with that wide angle macro lens. Right, and then finally some old pictures from 2006 and I think 7. Yeah, 2006 and 2007 from Malaysia. A magazine was wanting to do a feature on Malaysia. I've got lots of pictures processed from the old days, but my processing in 2006 does sometimes look a bit dated compared to modern stuff. So I reprocessed a couple of images for them, and also pulled out a few images that I'd never processed before while digging out a few favorites. So this is an old favorite from that trip, and I just reprocessed it slightly. It was easy picture to process. They were looking for a picture for a magazine cover, and this shot has been on covers before, and I thought if I reprocess it, it'll look a bit smarter. And it works very well on magazine covers because it's basically got a cool subject, it's got a diver, and it's got tons and tons of space, which is what magazine covers like. This is another picture from that trip. I felt that the bumphead parrotfish are very characteristic, particularly of Cypridan, so I wanted to process some of the shots of those. This is just a pallet to surgeonfish. This was shot with the 2870, but not with the WACP. This is long before the days for WACP. This is using a 2870 as a standalone lens, and this is shot with the fisheye, obviously, with the 10.5mm. So these are with my Nikon D2X, and this is shot with a 105mm, the pallet tang, the dory fish for those that like Finding Nemo. And that's shot with that, and I just thought I'd process that out. It's a very boring side-on picture. It could almost be dead, this fish lying on a piece of blue card, but it is actually alive and swimming. But I thought it was just nice to I just caught my eye, thought I'd process it out. This is at Kapalai Island, so in Malaysia, but on Kapalai Island, and the jetties there were packed with fish. These are harlequin sweetlips, and there's some goatfish behind, and some snappers behind. And I just love the density of that. And this is shot with that 2870 again. And I don't really use this lens much. I don't really use such a tight lens much anymore. And I was drawn to process this one out because I do think this is a stage where I was doing a lot of photo books. And I was purposely shooting lots of different lenses to get real visual variety in my portfolio. And I think that I really that one really stuck out to me now, because I don't really shoot anything with that same perspective. You know, that shot on 42mm, probably behind a small dome, so it's quite a wide view. But, and yeah, it's maybe like the same as using a WACP at the zoomed in lens end. But yeah, I felt that had a nice perspective. Just a classic macro shot of a elongated goby on a sponge. And this is one I processed before. This one I thought also could maybe work as a potential cover shot. Although it's a horizontal, the magazines often, you know, can fit a horizontal onto a cover. So I processed this one with as much space around it as I could. I think the version I had of this before, it was cropped a little bit tighter to make the parrotfish a bit more eye-catching. But I realised that then couldn't be cropped into a cover shot. But hopefully this one could be, and the magazine could always add a little bit of extra blue at the top should they want to, especially if they're going to put text over it. So that's why I reprocessed that one. There's a few others I didn't send to the magazine, which I pulled out and processed and then chose not to send on. I like this dense group of bumphead parrotfish. You don't really see this in many other places, and be able to get close to these really big groups. And yeah, Cyprinid, certainly back in those days, was great for this. So I felt it was worth processing this out just because it's something that I don't see every day. And the same with this goby on this lovely yellow sponge. Again, don't see gobies sitting on yellow sponges very much, so I thought that I'd process this one out. This is another one that was processed out as a potential cover. This picture here is, although it's from 2006, I think it's in my my book, the 52 Assignments book. But when I processed it at the time, I didn't process it with as much contrast as this. And I felt that, particularly for a modern cover shot, it needed a bit more impact. So I just did reprocessed it at a higher contrast. And slightly higher resolution as well, because this is with a 12 megapixel D2X, and I increased the resolution up to about, looks like about 30 megapixels, something like that. So just to make it a slightly larger file size, because it's shot really sharp, it's still really sharp at res. I can't zoom in on these, as I explained earlier in the video. Right, the last few, this is a long old slog, this video. This is a panning shot of a school of big-eyed trevally, the ones I'm sure at Barracuda Point on Cyprinid, and then there's a split level shot of Cyprinid from that period, with the corals in this foreground, the jetty, the old Borneo divers jetty, which by 2006 no one was staying on the island, 2007 no one was staying on the island, but nice to see a split level of Cyprinid. This wasn't a perfect shot. I didn't think the underwater bit is that interesting, and that's why back in 2006 I didn't consider this worth processing. But I thought, oh, it's it's historically interesting to see this now, so I processed it out. And then finally, a couple more kelp shots from California. There's a Garibaldi here with some these little cup corals. What are they called? We have them in England. I should know the name of those. These very brightly coloured corals, whose name has gone out of my head right now. A pair of sea lions, Californian sea lions, swimming through the kelp forest. There's a bit of movement blur on these sea lions, and so they're not that sharp. But I just felt the picture had a lovely atmosphere to it, so I decided to process it out. It's not a perfect picture, but it really captures that diving for me. And then this sea lion is sharp, but it's not as nice a composition. But I thought I'd process that one out as well. Shot at 200th of a second, that one, but this one's at 40th, and that's why the sea lions are blurred. It is quite dark in that environment. You can see I'm at ISO 800, f11 on the 13mm, which would be not f11, but f8, because that lens in that form didn't process well. But yeah, I hope that was interesting. I'll be back next time with some more tigers.